Okay, hi everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in to this webinar where we're going to talk about best practices to working from home. If we haven't met, my name is Fadi and I'm the co-founder and executive director at Ventures Impact. And today I'm joined by my good friend, Tracy Flitcraft. Tracy is the business solutions manager at Wunderman Thompson. Hi, Tracy.
Hello.
How are you doing?
I'm doing well, thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us in this webinar to provide your expertise around working from home and how to be really, really effective as a remote worker. I know that you've been working from home for a little bit, so maybe just tell us a little bit about your journey around working from home and your experience in that area.
So I'm within the tech industry, which has a high percentage of remote workers. I've been working remotely since 2012, so just about 8 years now. And it's definitely a change from the office, but once you get the swing of it, you find the efficiencies and the gains that you get from working in a remote space.
Yeah, awesome. So maybe we'll get into our PowerPoint or Google Slides presentation. And really this is just supposed to give you guys a lot of actionable information around things you can do to improve working from home or working remotely for yourself and for your team. Clearly, we're putting this together because of a lot of nonprofits are starting to grapple with this topic in the time of Corona. Lots of offices are shutting down. Heck, lots of countries are even shutting down, and we're all being forced to be productive and get our work done and reach out to our beneficiaries in a remote fashion. So we really wanted to focus on empowering you and empowering your team to have the best tools and best ideas when it comes to working from home.
All right. I've got my screen set up, so we'll go through and talk about the basics.
Great. So next slide, please. So as I mentioned, we're going to explore if your team is fully ready to work from home, and we are going to explore if you have the skills and the resources and support right now to support your beneficiaries remotely, if your team has the tools that you need to function fully remotely, and then following that is what can you use from this time to build infrastructure for you to be able to support your team to work remotely from the field, from home, from whatever, once this crisis is over. And when we think about the nonprofit landscape, there are a few challenges that we always acknowledge and that stand out to us. The nonprofit space faces a lot of staffing and resource challenges. In the nonprofit space, we typically have to do a lot more with a lot less. When it comes to technology, we're typically working with older technologies, less technology, and some of the software that we use is outdated, and some of our processes have not been adopted in a digital way. So this coronavirus situation is a really great opportunity to start investigating those technologies, bringing them up to speed, and figuring out how do you move to scale and how do you continue to support your team from a technology perspective. The nonprofit space is results centric. You get funding based on results. You get all kinds of support based on results, and how do you show results in a time right now when you can't even access your community. So that's the challenge that we're all facing, and we have some tools to help you with that. And then training and leadership development opportunities in the nonprofit space. We typically have less avenues for trainings, less avenues for staff development, and this is exactly why we're leading this session and bringing an expert like Tracy to help us all unlock how do we maximize our potential and our staff's potential when when it comes to working from home. And then the fifth consideration, fifth challenge that we wanted to take into place is we know in the nonprofit space we don't have infinite amount of money to go in and invest in new systems and new infrastructures that might be really, really effective, but really, really costly. So we wanted to tailor a lot of our approaches and a lot of our best practices around things that are really cost effective, or things that you can even start to do right now with your team for free. So that's kind of where we are from a kind of landscape challenges perspective. So Tracy, over to you to start to help us walk through the best practices for working from home.
Sure. So a little bit more about my background and experience in working from home. I have set up and implemented multiple teams who have worked remotely across multiple enterprise brands in their marketing communications programs. So some of the things that I have learned over the years is how can you work remotely in high volume, high stress times when you don't have face-to-face conversations, or when you can't reach somebody immediately when you are able to in an office setting, so like go over to their desk and knock on their table or interrupt them on a phone call. You have to get creative in these remote settings. And so what I've done in the last few years is create a process and create different documentations on how teams can be successful when they have to use a tool like Slack or GChat, or when they have to implement their workflow in something like Jira or Trello, or even Google Systems or Microsoft Teams. So we're going to walk through what I've learned over the years, and then what some of our teams have done to become very successful in remote working. So if you didn't know this already, remote workers are 25% more efficient than on-site workers. This is because you don't have the interruptions of an office setting where people are going in and out of conference rooms or the kitchen, or distractions outside are getting everyone to go to the window versus looking at their computer screens. So you see some eliminations in the distractions that on-site workers have when you go to your own space. You're able to set up an environment that is comfortable for you. The screens that you want and how you want them positioned is all dependent on you, and you're not having to work within an infrastructure that hasn't been flexible to what you need. So we do see an increase when employees are working remotely. And so it is something that is encouraged and almost sought after, rather than finding people in the same area to come into one site every single day. One thing you should realize is that there is a difference between remote and on-site working. And that is, when you are a remote worker, you typically have a flexible schedule. So you have to think about, how do you set yourself up so that you can be reliable and accountable for the work that you're doing, versus on-site. When you show up, you're physically there, so you're working, everybody knows you're working. So there's little nuances that you need to just understand and appreciate between your remote work environment and an on-site environment. And then also understanding what you were like as an on-site worker, and how do you take the good things that you had in that position and apply them to your remote life, and then get rid of some of the bad habits that you might have had, like taking an hour lunch and then coming back and sitting in front of your computer and not working for 30 minutes after your hour lunch. So some of these things just need to be understood, and from each individual perspective, how do you apply the good habits of on-site working to your remote life and get rid of the bad things that you don't want to carry on? So some tactics for successful remote work are really four main items, which is building structure into your day-to-day, ensuring you have regular reality checks, using collaboration and project management tools to drive success, and then prioritizing relationships. We'll go through each one of these and talk a little bit more about the details and the tools that you can use to apply them to your day-to-day remote life. First is building structure into your day-to-day. So setting regular office hours. It's easy to roll out of bed at 10 a.m. and then take a 2-hour lunch at noon and then come back and work until 9 p.m. Because you didn't do much in the morning. While that might be a good way for you to work, you need to have your team understand when you're actually going to be available to talk to them and go through things. So whether you set your standard 9 to 5 time that you'll be in the office and available to your team, or if you have more of a consolidated view of these are the hours that I'll be available to talk to you, and then I will work at my own pace at different hours. Regardless of what it is, be sure that you are setting them and communicating to your team what those hours are, and also identifying the time zone in which you're working, because 9 a.m. Eastern is much different than 9 a.m. Pacific, and everybody is familiar with the different time zones. So giving everybody that perspective of you'll be in at 9 a.m. Pacific means less people are going to be concerned if you're not answering their call at 11 a.m. Eastern. Second is make sure you're taking at least an hour lunch away from your computer and phone. Even in on-site working, people have the tendency to eat their lunch at their desk and not have that break. As a remote employee, this can be really make or break for you, because if you're not taking time away to go outside for a walk, go into your garden, or even just sit down and take a minute away from that work, you could end up working 12, 13-hour days and not really seeing the light of day. So make sure you are taking a period of time during the middle of the day to do something for yourself that's healthy and fulfilling. Even if you do eat at your desk, go for a walk afterwards, go walk your dog, or go sit and enjoy the outside space so that you get a little bit of time away from your home office. And then that leads to creating your own work environment. It's easy to sit down at your dining room table and work and have all the interruptions of the postman coming, or dogs barking in the background, or even family and friends interrupting you because they think that you don't do work during the day. Having your own desk in a space that feels comfortable, that's away from the hectic of kitchen or kids, or even the interruptions of friends and family coming over. Make it a space where when you go there, you are working. So then that way at 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, 9 o'clock p.m., when you step out of that environment, you can go into your home environment, and you're not mixing the two, which is going to save you a lot of headspace and make you physically and mentally better. One thing that I encourage all my team to do is to create to create a to-do list, which can be any version that you want, whether it's just a physical notepad and pen, or a tool like Microsoft OneNote or Evernote. These items give you a list that you can carry over day to day so that you know what you're supposed to do for that day. This gives you short-term goals, gives you tasks to accomplish, so that you're looking at actual items to do versus, gosh, I don't even know where to begin. So this is something that I've created and I've used for the last 6 years, is a Microsoft OneNote tab that I am able to track the times when I check into work and then check out. And then also I can copy and paste my to-do list over day to day or week to week, so that I don't lose track of the tasks that I'm supposed to do. This has grown, and as you can see, I have several weeks there to go through it. It's one of the best things I've done as a remote employee is to track what I do, and then months later I can go back and say, no, on January 27th, I did this task. So I know it's done. Let me find it in my email, or let me find it in my documents. And one of the other things is to conduct daily check-ins. I'm going to let Fadi speak to this one, since he does this with his team, and he can give you a little bit more information about what he does.
Yeah, that's thanks, Tracy. And for us, because we weren't remote workers, and all of a sudden, and without having the time or opportunity to plan it, our co-working space closed down. The coronavirus restrictions came in, and we needed to figure out a way how to continue to work together apart, and how to continue to build relationships and FaceTime together. So one of the things that we instituted right away was a morning check-in every day. Every day at 9:30, our team gets together and we talk about two main things besides the day-to-day activities. We start with a word that we're feeling, so that could be any word. We could be feeling stressed, we could be feeling tired, we could be feeling excited, we could be feeling anything, but it just really gives us all a starting point of how is everyone on the team feeling, and how are we all coping with what's going on in light of Corona. And then the second thing that we do is, what are we grateful for? So sometimes we're grateful for each other, sometimes we're grateful for the health of our families, and sometimes we're grateful because we had a really big win on one of our teams or one of our projects. And these are really good things to celebrate and to help us all kind of get on the same page about what are the different things that people are feeling and the different things that people are happy about. The really cool thing about this is it gives people a start day. So people will know that they get on the line at 9:30 a.m. to talk and to start their day. And from there, meetings roll out, expectations get discussed. We understand the to-dos. It just becomes a very kind of centering point for the day. It's also a good social environment because some of us might not have any other calls with any other people, and it becomes really lonely if you're just working and sending emails and you're not talking to anybody all day long. And then because of the coronavirus and what's going on, we find that things are changing on a day-to-day basis. So this is a really good place to come back and say, okay, there's new restrictions on travel, or there's new opportunities with this. Who's following up? What have we done? Things have shifted for us when we went remote. And so the informal interactions of running into people and saying, oh, by the way, have you checked in with this, or have you heard from this person about that, have completely disappeared. And this morning check-in became our opportunity when we're doing, oh, by the way, did you hear about this, Tracy, or have you heard from this person? And then the biggest thing too is when you're bringing these calls to your team, make sure that you customize them to fit the culture of the team. So we're really comfortable talking about a word that we're feeling and what we're grateful for. But if something else works for your team, definitely pilot that. And within a few weeks, you'll figure out what's really working for you, and then you can take that and run with it. But the most important thing is just to build the structure where you're checking in with people, you're hearing them out, you're understanding the to-dos and realigning expectations, and really just creating a social environment for people.
And these morning check-ins can really help with the collaboration of the work, so everyone feels like they're really a big part of the overall process or workflow of the day-to-day.
Yeah, totally.
And then that really brings us into the next one, which is establishing the process and clarity in workflows and tasks. So those daily check-ins help you with the collaboration. Well, you need to establish a process and clarity in workflows so that everyone knows what they're supposed to be doing, because you can't walk over to their desk and say, did you do this? You're supposed to be doing this. So looking into that, what I do with my teams is establish a process and clarity of that process so that anyone can go in and see, oh, this is what I'm supposed to do. This is when I'm supposed to do it. And then this is who I'm supposed to hand it off to. So as you can see on the right side of the slide is a campaign process that has been created into a visual so that if you're a campaign manager, email developer, or quality assurance, you know when you are supposed to be getting something and how you're handing it off. So this is really the steps to getting this was we had to establish what we're doing. Everyone knows what they're doing. Everyone has a task that they should be doing at a certain time. So once we identify who and what are supposed to be doing that, we can document it and have each person write up what they're supposed to be doing and how they're doing it within each campaign or account that they're working on. And then create a visual. So this helps with onboarding new members. This helps with showing the client or showing people how they should be working and operating. And then it encourages people to follow the process. So you don't have people jumping in and trying to do something out of place or trying to push things along, because there is a process. There is a workflow that is happening. You have proof of it. You have a visual. And then finally, being able to adjust and adapt as needed. We work in a fast-paced world where things are always evolving, new technologies, new information is always coming up. So being able to adjust it, change it as needed is always important, so that you're being flexible and accommodating where the changes need to happen. This is really part of communicating, collaborating, and connecting. Something that you need to be ensuring that you're doing so that everyone feels like they know what they're doing. They feel like they can provide insight to how they're doing it. And then they feel like they're more of a team than if they were all working in a silo.
Tracy, I love this. And I just want to jump in and ask a question here, because for a lot of my nonprofit colleagues, this is really new, and we haven't had what we're presenting is established systems and workflows. And what sometimes is happening on the nonprofit end is that we have gaps in our systems and workflows, but we haven't identified if we need to start to establish a workflow or a diagram that clarifies things yet, or if we just need individual conversations. So my question to you is, when did you kind of say, okay, we need to stop and we need to establish and define phases of our workflows, and we need to define the process, and we need to bring everyone on to the table to agree on this and establish this concrete standard operating process before we move forward? What were the triggers or signs that made you think, okay, this is a standard process and we need to standardize it and bring everyone to the table to talk about it?
Well, everybody works in a process. Everyone has their own workflow, regardless if they have a visual or not for it. When I started making these visuals and documentations for this, it's really when we started to build a team that was greater than just me and a couple other people. So when you have to start onboarding, whether it's volunteers or new staff or a new organization to your organization, being able to say, okay, this is how we're going to do it. This is when you jump in with this responsibility, or this is when you would be doing what you need to be doing. I would say a really good example of this is if you're onboarding new volunteers, having them understand, okay, these are the things that led up to us having you come in. Now, as a volunteer, you came in, and these are the tasks that I want you to do. And when you're ready to hand off, you're going to be handing it off to so-and-so with this documentation, or with this these forms, or this information that you're giving to the program director or the volunteer coordinator. So everybody has some form of a process already in place. It's just a matter of documenting it out and then creating a visual so that you can onboard people quickly and easily. And then once you have that, this visual grows to a point where it actually becomes the source of how you operate in your day-to-day.
Right. I love that. And what you've highlighted too is this is worth investment on the front end, because it just becomes way easier when you have that laid out. Then you can tell people, here's what we're doing, here's how you do it, here's your responsibility, here's mine, are we good? And then you can just move forward, and then location becomes irrelevant, whether you're remote or in the same place, because the process is established.
Right. And then people are able to say, okay, great, I know what I'm doing. I can help the next person who may not know what they're supposed to be doing. So then you're allowing your organization to scale. And you as the director or the coordinator are able to take a step back and focus on the strategy, focus on the mission versus having to onboard and teach people how to do the process.
I love that. Cool.
The second tactic that we want to look at is ensuring you have regular reality check-ins. This is personal. Rather than talking about daily check-ins with your team, this is something that you should have for yourself. Working remotely is different than working from home occasionally. So you got to dive into that perspective and dive into really how you need to be working and what's best for you so that you could be efficient and create an impact. So talking about remote work versus work from home, this concept is new, but I want to explain it a little bit more. Is remote work is somebody who has worked from home. They have their own office, they have their own setup, whether they work from a coffee shop or from a office in their home. They're established as a person who doesn't have a place to go in and work in a site, whether it's an office with other teammates or a place that is away from what they can control in their own environment. Versus working from home is where you do have that office, you do have that place to go, but you choose to work from home because you have a doctor's appointment or because you're feeling under the weather or whatever the circumstances are. These are different. As a remote worker, you need to understand that there are long-term considerations you need to make for yourself, like your work environment and your schedule, versus the work from home where you could take it easy here and there, take a breather, do something for yourself. Just understand those terms are very different. And so don't go in it saying we're working from home, because no, you're a remote worker now, whether it ends in June, August, or 2022, you are a remote worker and you need to learn how to build your environment so it works for you. So with that, be flexible with yourself. We're under really stressful times right now where you don't have a place to go to. You are confined to your own work environment. So understand if the kids are screaming or if you're getting friends coming over and interrupting you during the day, that's okay. Allow those things to happen and then go back to your motivation, go back to the work that you want to be doing when you're able to do it, and make sure you do it the best ability if you're not doing it within your normal office hours or doing it in times that are typical 9 to 5s. Second, create accountability. Again, having a checklist or having something to say, I need to do this today or I need to do this by end of the week, allows you to do that work on your own time, but making sure you do that work. I do this all the time where I will announce to a teammate and say, I'm going to have this done to you by Tuesday. Now, sometimes I don't get it done by Tuesday because other things come up, other projects or assignments come up. But I sure get it done by Wednesday or Thursday because I had told somebody that I was going to do it by Tuesday. So doing those little things that create accountability for yourself will help you in the long run get things done, because you can be distracted in your home. You can be distracted if you are working remotely, which means you need to have a way to know what tasks you need to do and when you need to have them done. And finding motivation in your work. Sometimes tasks are tedious and boring and you don't want to do them, but you have to do them. That's not always motivating, but you can get them done because you have to. Other times there's projects and work that you want to do because it really motivates you. Find that middle ground of how can you do those tasks that you don't necessarily want to do, but you have to do them, but you can do them better. You can do them easier. You can do them in a way that gives you motivation to do them. Or finding a larger project that makes you feel fulfilled in your work, and you're able to do it and get up in the morning to do that work because you really find it motivating. Those are some of the things as a remote worker you have to really draw on. Otherwise, you may not only work 2 or 3 hours a day, and you get distracted by what's on TV or the news or your social media feeds. These items are really essential to making sure that you can be an efficient remote worker and that you are doing good work and not falling and getting tangled in the inefficiencies of remote life. The third tool and idea that we need to get into is how to use collaboration and project management tools to drive success. Nonprofits are typically using free or reduced cost tools, which may not have the capacity of the larger businesses who can spend millions of dollars on software. So you really do need to find how to use tools, software tools, and other tools that everybody on your team can use and feel good about using. So Fadi and I actually talked quite a bit about these different options of tools that you can use. There's a lot of free versions or even reduced cost versions of softwares. But the preferred tools that I've used really have come down to these 4 items. And what they are is you have to have a communication tool, whether it's Slack or GChat or Telegram. These tools allow you to talk with groups. So you can have your full team group. You can have a conversation about a particular project or a smaller group for personal items. Whatever it is, having a communication tool that allows you to talk with people quickly and have ongoing conversations throughout the day are really beneficial. Trello is a project management tool that Fadi uses with Venture to Impact. I've used it with some of my clients. And this project management tool is similar to Jira, similar to Basecamp, similar to Asana, which allows you to create projects and tasks within those projects and then move them along through your workflow or through the process so that you could see who needs to do what and when. These tools are essential for finalizing projects, making sure everything gets done when they should be done, and then holding people accountable so that they know what they need to be doing. These virtual tools allow anyone to log in from wherever they are in the world and see what they're supposed to be doing and how, or answer any questions or clarify any work that they've done. So something like Trello, Asana, Jira, or Basecamp are really essential for the projects in the world that are being handled from a place like Rwanda or Romania, having to come back to North America or Europe and having to deal with who's handling what and when. That can really be essential to your workflow. Microsoft Teams, there is a free version of Microsoft Teams. This allows you to do your Microsoft Word, your PowerPoint, Excels. You can exchange documents. You can have conversations. What I really love, though, is the Google Docs and G Drive system, where you can use your personal Gmail account and send documents through that in a shared drive, or create a form and submit it with you and your team, or use a shared spreadsheet on Google Sheets to talk about any upcoming projects or financials that you may have. All of these products are really good, but they are essential to use. And I know that Fadi has some documentation or some information that he can share out after the call to more information.
I was going to say 2 things. One thing is that we're actually creating a Trello training because Trello has been so important to us in project management, all of our work, and it's totally free. And then the other things that Tracy and I talked about a lot is we need tools that are really useful on a desktop or a laptop computer, but tools that you can use with your phone.
Right.
And all of these tools across the board can be used with a basic smartphone and are really, really low data to use. So if you're using WhatsApp already, if you're using GChat already, you can start using Slack, Trello, Microsoft Teams, Google Docs with the same amount of data and with the same amount of power. It's not that significant of a shift. It's just going to help you organizing your workflow and your communication and collaboration a lot better.
And then that really turns into connecting with others so that people know what you're doing, you know what other people are doing, and then teams can grow and develop more impact. Yeah. And then finally, one tactic that sometimes gets pushed to the side is prioritizing relationships. This is something that we really need to emphasize in the nonprofit world, since much of it is about connecting and building relationships with beneficiaries or with partner organizations. So starting with your team to make sure that your team feels like they're connected to one another is huge. So setting up a one-to-one meeting with each of your teammates can be really helpful. Fadi does the 15-5, which he can talk about how he does that with his team. Fadi, do you want to explain the 15-5?
Yeah, so I mean, the idea of one-to-one meetings is really important because you're able to talk directly to the people that you're supporting and understand how they're feeling, understand where the gaps are, and then turn that insight into your role, into what you need to do to support them. One of the biggest things is, well, what do you say in that meeting? What does the one-to-one look like, and what does the agenda? And for us, it's been really about 4 simple things. We dig in with what's going well. So what is on your plate that you're really crushing right now, or you're really excelling in and you don't need extra support on? What's been challenging? What are the friction items or the things that are going a little bit less well than you would have expected? And then thirdly is, where can I help? How can I help? And then from there, you also get to share your perspective. So, you want to wrap up with, well, John, these 3 things have been going really, really, really well this week. And at the same time, I've noticed maybe it's something as simple as, I've noticed that your internet connection has been really poor recently when we've been chatting, and it's been really hard to collaborate with you. So could you try to work from a coffee shop next week? Or could you try to do something different about the internet? And really all that does is that it just gives you an opportunity to address things as they come up on a weekly or a bi-weekly basis. And it helps you get the pulse of the team, see how people are feeling, where they need your help, and then it gives you that opportunity to just give your 2 cents and where you need people to support what you're doing for the betterment of the organization. So I really like that. If you can't do it once a week, do it once every 2 weeks, once every 3 weeks, but at least continue the conversation just to hear out your team members directly in a one-on-one fashion, and then really understand, where you just need to give them autonomy and where you need to help.
And that really leads into making a point to talk about your personal life. If you have those regular weekly or bi-weekly meetings, it's easier to bring up the personal conversations that you don't necessarily have if you're just talking business or talking projects. So in your 15-5s or one-on-one meetings, if they're regularly scheduled, that allows for more time to make it about personal life so that you can understand your team and you can connect with them and understand them as a person, not just a resource or tool. That is really important for you to also ask about your teammates' lives. While you want to talk about your personal life, ask your teammates about their lives. So then you're getting the receptive pull of what's going on with them. Maybe they're having a hard time because their kids are always screaming in the background and they can't concentrate. And then you can have a little bit more sympathy when you're on a call with them asking about a project. One thing I've always encouraged and enjoyed is sharing GIFs, memes, or personal anecdotes. These are things that I always did when I was in an office, having jokes and the personal conversations. It's harder to do as a remote employee. So sharing GIFs, funny stuff, or things that give people a smile always makes me feel better because I'm creating that connection. I'm showing them my personality and a little bit about my personal life while making it a virtual thing in a picture or a visual that shows them what I'm thinking, what's going on in my head. And then collaborate on workflows and process so everybody understands their role and tasks. Again, it's really easy to take a process, put it in a documentation, create a visual, and then tell everybody what to do. It's a lot harder to ask people how they want to be working, how they feel they can do things better, and then implementing it in your process that you created. But the benefits of collaborating, having everybody work in a way that they want to be working and working within the process so that everybody can get what they need from each other is going to be huge with your organization and the impact that you're creating and the work that you're getting done. So don't forget to collaborate, connect with people on what they need to be doing. You could do these in your 15-5s, ask them where they're struggling, where are the areas of opportunity, and then start implementing them in the overall process so that it can grow your organization. And then finally, be more than a talking head. You know, here I am with shoulder up, Fadi's shoulder up. We both have personalities and personal goals and missions that we're all trying to accomplish. And if you can share that with your team and allow everyone to understand you and then you understand them, you're building a team which then helps spread out the impact and connections to others within your organization or within your community. That being said, it's important to talk about the benefits of a fully remote team. After the COVID-19 pandemic has come to an end, we're going to see some big changes in the future of organizations and businesses alike. So thinking about the benefits of a fully remote team can help you better plan for the future and what might be down the road for you as an organization and potentially working remotely from here on out. So just to give you some numbers of what organizations who work remotely can do, well, we've seen a 77% increase in employee productivity when they are working remotely in their own space. So you could see an increase in what your resources, volunteers, or staff are doing for your organization, which then can create a bigger impact for your organization. Also, there's a $10,000 average savings a year per employee. So if you are tight on budget or need to save some money, consider doing fully remote teams from here on out. Create a system where everyone can work on their own, and then you can save some big money by not having rent for an office space or having to buy desks and computers. And then we're also seeing an 83% increase in employee satisfaction when working remotely. So that means people are staying with companies that they can work remotely. And that means longer term employees who can help create a longer impact, drive your mission for much longer than somebody who has to drive an hour to and from work and then sit in bad traffic and who might get stressed out by that. So here are some things to help you understand the benefits of working remotely so that you can plan in the future of is this a long-term solution to your organization? And then some of the other things that aren't as easy to put into numbers is you're able to build a team of skill-based resources regardless of locations. Fadi, I know that you struggle with this where you have a lot of great people in Halifax, but maybe not everything you need can be in Halifax. So you have to find people in other places, other cities.
Yeah, definitely. And I'll give you like a real life example. We were applying for a grant this year, and it was a big grant through Global Affairs Canada, and it was with a partner in Rwanda. And because we were able to establish a remote-based workflow, we had a grant writer in Brussels. We had another grant writer in Toronto, which is like a 2-hour flight from where we are. And then we had a core team in Rwanda working on it and a team here in Halifax. So, so we really tapped into amazingly skilled people because we had remote working capabilities through Trello, through Google Meet, and through Google Docs to collaborate on all the files and get everybody on the same page through all the documents that were shared on a common cloud folder. So yeah, that's like our reality for sure.
And then when you're talking about in-field staff, you do this all the time with your program. There has to be a way that you communicate with these people. So talk about engaging with in-field staff and how hard it is if you weren't using Trello or Google Docs.
Yeah, for sure. So, and a lot of the organizations that we work with have in-field staff that leave the HQ office and go into a remote community. And then those people are like forgotten about. No one checks in with them. No, they're not reporting back to HQ. And then 2 weeks later, they come back to HQ and kind of say, oh, this is what we've been working on. But it's not a dynamic kind of two-way conversation throughout the time that they're in community. And I think a lot of it is because people just really don't know how to structure those check-ins and update in a way that makes sense. But what we've been using is Trello, because Trello is really project-centric. So if you're in a village doing a water, sanitation, hygiene program or a food program, then you can just plug in your updates on a daily basis under that column. And then your team at HQ can start to see, okay, today you had this many beneficiaries attend, or you had these many water wells, prepped for use for this many numbers of communities. So it doesn't always have to be a phone conversation or a face-to-face meeting. A lot of the updates can happen if you have the right boards and right platform set up, and then just enable your remote staff to go in on their phone and do these updates in a very simple fashion. So definitely something that technology has allowed us to do that we didn't think was possible before.
Yeah. And then reducing the overhead cost, easily done if you're not paying for a office space or lease, and then all the components that go with that. But then also retaining staff for longer. I know I've been volunteering with Venture to Impact since 2015. Do you think you'd have as many volunteers as you have had you had to find them all in Halifax or all in one location?
No. And so for us, locality just became we need to know where you are to understand your time zone, to understand when we can book you for a meeting or when we can collaborate with you. So we're not suggesting a meeting for you at like midnight your local time. But this is the best of both worlds for us, because we're really kind of tapping into really amazing minds. They're enjoying working with us, we all feel plugged into a common mission, but we're not all in the same physical space. So and maybe I would ask you, what made you want to stick around for the last 5 years, and hopefully for the next 5-10 years to come?
Well, for me, I love the V2I mission and the impact that you drive, but everyone is really accommodating. So there is the idea that meetings aren't at 7 a.m. for me when I'm on Pacific time. And that we can communicate, we could build out this deck, build out materials through Google Docs, and then email each other back and forth when we have questions or whatnot. We're able to work remotely, which then fits into my work schedule or my personal schedule. And then you having a child, you don't have to necessarily email me or talk to me right at nap time, but we can move things around so that it fits into everyone's schedule. So definitely that accommodation and the flexibility with, we're not in the same location. We don't have to meet face to face, and we can have great ideas, send each other an email, and then build upon it really quickly. That's what I like about V2I on top of your mission and the impact.
Yeah, awesome. So I think, for what Tracy and I wanted to do today is talk about how do we help you guys better communicate from a remote standpoint. Now you're not running into people in the office in an unplanned fashion where you just follow up on things or just have those casual interactions. So how do you establish really good systems and really good documentations and processes and really good ways to connect with your team to ensure that your communication is A1? How do you collaborate? What are the tools that you use? And how do you really just make sure that everybody's in the loop with the tools that you're using and the processes that you have in place? And then also, if you're a leader in your organization, and you can define leader however way, I think most people are actually leaders in their organizations. How do you establish ways to make sure that relationships are really the top priority, to establish places where you can really get to know your employees and colleagues as people, and spaces where you can create empathy and create dialogue around what really matters, and then also show your personality, as Tracy said. We're not just talking heads. How do we be goofy? How to be real? How do we talk about our dreams and aspirations and really kind of just bring our authentic and genuine selves to work apart from work in a remote fashion?
Yeah, and what we established here, next steps really fall into communicate, collaborate, and connect. And Fadi said it best, it's so important to make relationships a priority, and each one of these next steps emphasizes that, so that it's not just about getting work done, but it's actually about building the relationship so that you could drive your mission and your team to do great things. Fadi, with that, any final thoughts or anything you'd want to share?
I think my final thought for my colleagues in the nonprofit industry is that this is an opportunity. We have struggled to get our systems and our technology to a place where we can accommodate our employees, our beneficiaries, and our stakeholders to work remotely. Use this time wisely, build out your systems. This is a time that's forcing us to think outside of the box and to really figure out how do we continue to do the work, that really important work that we're doing, even when we're not in the office. So take that time to build out those systems and infrastructures and processes, and then adopt them once this coronavirus pandemic is over, for your longevity and for a continued innovative way for you to support your beneficiaries. These are my final thoughts. So I'll wrap up by saying thank you, Tracy, so much for dedicating so much time to pulling this deck together, to just being a part of the conversation and really imparting a lot of your knowledge and a lot of your hands-on experience in making remote team approachable for so many people and so many teams that you support, and bringing this knowledge to this space and ecosystem. We really enjoyed learning more about your experience, and I think a lot of the items that you've put into place are super actionable, and I think are things that are approachable for my colleagues in our nonprofit space. So we just genuinely want to thank you, and hope we can continue this conversation at a later point.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I appreciated this work.
Absolutely. Stop. Okay.